Welcome back, everyone, to the Duty Bound podcast. I am your host, Dr. D, Deandra Poe, affectionately known as Dr. D. You are in the right place. Do not adjust your volume or leave. So it is May 2023. I can't believe we're almost halfway through the year. I am like trying to adjust here so y'all can see my ponytail. I have a ponytail. Yeah, it's like we're almost through the end of the year. So I am particularly excited. It First of all, I'm coming to you guys live from South Carolina, which has always been on my bucket list to come to. So I'm here for a work, but I'm definitely gonna play in Charleston when I get done. Uh April was Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and now we're in May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It is Team Self Esteem Awareness Month. It is Bipolar Disorder Awareness Month, known as BPD. Um, Complicated disorder, but we're going to dive into it a little bit just for general knowledge for some people. And it's also barbecue day, which makes sense because Memorial Day is in May, but oh, it's also a national holiday because it's my son Joshua's birthday, May 25th. So shout out to those two-faced Scorpios out there. There's a helicopter flying past. I mean, I expected it because I'm near a military base. But either way, I'm having fun today. I'm excited going forward. April was just incredible for me. I don't even really have the words. Can y'all hear me stumbling? I'm not a woman that's typically lost for words. I think I can articulate myself pretty well, but April was a whirlwind and I'm just getting started. So, where do I begin? The I mean, first of all, April also carried my other two children's birthday. So, those Aries, those Aries, Elijah and Brianna both had birthdays 7 days apart. They didn't want to share a birthday. It's fine. We'll celebrate you 1 week later. But yeah, April Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so much going on. So I'm just going to recap a little bit because, if you listen to the podcast in April, which you should have, know that I had a chief on there, uh, a One Punch Dad from TikTok. His military TikToks are hilarious, I think. But Chief gave some really good insight on him serving and being a warrant officer. Okay, so last month, Dad and I got to go to Joint Base Langley Eustis down in Virginia, and the way that they catered to my father, the way that they showed out for him is immeasurable. My father's a 91-year-old Korean War veteran, and for him coming into the military where it was supposed to be segregated, it was not. And so for my father, still has some very deep rooted hurts associated with going over to Korea, witnessing some unspeakable things, friends dying, and to come back and still be treated less than. But having the opportunity to meet some really incredible high ranking officers, General Brito being the first Cape Verdean. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Verdi. Um, but in terms of their people, first uh, here in America, and then General Harrison, who was just exceptionally gracious to my father, so much so that my dad wanted to adopt him. So, as if we need more kids, there's 10 of us. I mean, sure, let's add another one. But thank you to General Brito, General Harrison, General Linton. I'm trying to think of all of the generals that I had an opportunity to sit down with. And that kind of segues into having a sit down conversation with these men and these women around where we are going, where we've come from. We were really focused on future tense in terms of prevention and accountability. And that was my takeaway from April. Prevention at the lowest level, recognizing grooming, recognizing healthy relationships. We really had to dive into what is going on at the ROTC programs, at the military institutions before leaders take on that role as a first lieutenant, second lieutenant, captain, which are just the formative years of being a military officer. But then those soldiers talking about BCTs, basic combat training, they're going into basic training. What are they learning there? The change in the warfighter to the profession of being a soldier, professionalism. So one of the things that was asked of me, and we are talking about me being a social worker, our social workers, it's a profession. You know, we have ethics and rules, guidelines that we have to adhere to as social workers because we are a profession of people. And so should soldiers. We talk about the Army values, and I'm positive the Marines, the Navy, Air Force, the Space Force, the Coast Guard all have their own ethical guidelines and their standard of what that airman, Marine, sailor, soldier is supposed to adhere to. And when we don't, as professionals, as therapists, we violate those. Our license is brought to the carpet, to task, and we're suspended. We may not be able to practice. Now, before anybody starts jumping in and saying that they're awful social workers, no one can sit here and name any one profession where everyone absolutely is the best at what they do consistently all the time and has never taken advantage or violated a rule or law. It is, to me, our inherent nature to try to get away with something if it benefits us. And I talked about that in my training too. But, how we make decisions, how we reason right or wrong, right? So that's not to say that there are not rule breakers in every profession. There are going to be rule breakers. It's how do we address it? How do we get to the professionalism of being a soldier and addressing that accountability piece? So yeah, we dove into the prevention part and what that looks like. But then we had a very open and raw conversation about accountability. And to me, it doesn't matter if that officer, that senior non-commissioned officer volunteers on the weekends to feed homeless people or goes and snuggles with puppies, on a Wednesday. I wouldn't care. That person chose to violate the profession. They chose to violate the ethics, the standard, the law, and they should be held accountable. In no way, shape, or form should the conversation ever be, let's consider his career. Let's consider how long he's been in. Absolutely not. I stand by that 100%. And because things like that have happened, it paints the pictures to those who have been victimized by those abusers that their career, their pay matter more than what they did to me, what I have to carry for the rest of my life versus what they may or may not pay for. So those conversations were very opening to have at that level. And also at their level, they are not with boots on the ground. I think for them, they really wanted to hear what it is from my perspective, what I hear, the stories that I'm being told, the things that I listen to via social media and other people. So, yeah, we had that conversation. And then I got to do National Crime Victims Week, Rights Week with Nova, my first webinar. I was nervous, y'all. Okay, first of all, I had two Spanish interpreters, and I've never worked with an interpreter before. I have Again, if you listen to my podcast, I probably mentioned it quite a few times about my affinity for the deaf and hard of hearing community because of the issues that I have with hearing, because of what I went through with my son and his hearing. And so I am slowly trying to learn ASL. I want more than anything. I won't say more than anything. I want very much to be able to bring therapy to the deaf and hard of hearing community. And if I ever figure out how to fit more stuff into my 24 hours, listen, your girl is barely sleeping now. When I can manage getting more stuff in the 24 hours, I want to learn. I want to find a teacher. Somebody please send me an ASL teacher that is patient, kind, because I really want to learn. Anyway, I digressed. I went down kind of a rabbit hole. I got to do my webinar and I had Spanish interpreters. So I had to go at a pace that this Jersey girl was not familiar with. I mean, I'm used to talking with my hands, I'm used to talking fast, and I'm from South Philly, South Philly, I'm from South Jersey. Can't tell I'm a Birds fan. Go Birds. Um, so yeah, I'm used to talking fast. My pace is particularly fast at times. Like not now, but I'm used to talking fast. And so it was an incredible experience. I was very grateful for those interpreters for uh, helping me understand. I didn't once have to be told to slow down. I think maybe I used a couple acronyms or something. I hope I didn't. Believe the feedback was mostly that I did a great job. So um, Nova did an amazing job helping me and giving me the platform to be able to talk to people about my story again and advocates how they can show up for our military service members, mostly civilians. Listen, military bases are surrounded by communities, and those communities are surrounded by people who live and work and interact with military personnel. It is it is important. It is imperative to the healing process that if I, as a service member, don't have anywhere to go, there has to be somewhere in my community where I can reach out and get help. And that was what I wanted to give them as a takeaway. There, we absolutely need our civilian counterparts to change the laws, to change the regulations, and to provide more resources, more voices, more choices. Period. That's it. And so I was going to read a few of the feedbacks that I got. A few of the feedbacks. My English. Um, just because I am in a place right now of walking in my hard work. And so, yes, I wanted to read this. And the question to them was, do you have any key takeaways from this presenter? If so, please share. One person said, yes, absolutely. As a victim advocate, I have to be familiar, up to date, and aware of the resource available. It doesn't matter the person's age, experience, rank, or position. Some people do not know what to do or where to go when it happens. It is our duty to make sure that they have the necessary tools and outlets. I appreciate that. Dr. Poe's testimony is another example of how the military must be reminded not all soldiers are honorable and soldiers are humans who need care during these moments in life. Understanding why there may be a hesitancy to accept help. People may have been groomed before, and that may have an impact on how they choose to trust others and how they can trust others. It is very important to learn about the different people and their stories. Every persona and journey is different and unique. One person said, don't assume what previous victims know and don't know about services. Um, through progress, though progress has been made, we have a long way to go in providing justice and support for our victims. Many instances still go unreported. Let me see. Restricting a survivor's ability to engage in certain opportunities and experiences is not always in their best interest. It can be extremely debilitating, and we must figure out a better way to protect survivors in and out of our military. And this last one, Dr. Poe, is very inspiring. She was very brave to share her story. Her story just shows how crucial victim services and the victims of crime are. And so I wanted to share that because I wanted to give you guys kind of insight feedback that I received. And I'm grateful. It's humbling, um, it's inspiring, and it keeps me going. It's my juice. I love it. So what else happened in April? Well, I also released my love letters to myself. I did not release them on YouTube here just yet, and I'm going to. So hopefully by the time you guys are listening to this podcast, you can go over to my YouTube. My love letters were was a project that I worked on a few months ago with my friend Thomas McIntosh out of Chicago. I still and it will always make me pause when I talk about my childhood abuse. And so every month in April on social media, I released a new love letter. I believe 5 in total love letters of the first time, not recognizing the first time, to the last time. I wanted to talk to that little girl who didn't have the ability to know what was happening. There wasn't resources or information or people around to help me navigate what was happening. And even today, there's still conversations around child sex trafficking and child abuse, child sexual abuse, that we are ever evolving to be able to help people. And so my love letter was to that little girl, my future self, talking to her, letting her know that she's incredible, and that she's going to be okay. And so I want to encourage other people to do that same thing. Talk to that little boy, talk to that little girl, and tell her how much you love her. Remind her that he, that they are going to be okay. It's the hardest thing that I ever had to do, second to giving birth, the hardest thing. And telling my family, who I kept that from for 30 years, more than 30 years. And what occurred to me is at 45 years old, I had been abused physically, emotionally, and spiritually for 33 years. Of the 45 years that I've been on this earth, most of it has been, yeah. And I know that's heavy, right? But I'm standing here, sitting here, I'm talking to you all, to someone not to broad stroke my journey or what any person goes through when they're being abused. It has always been the gut, my my inside, deep down to my core, that to provide hope, to provide hope, to be that person to someone else, that because there was no one for me, to be that conduit, to be that catalyst for their healing, and sharing to give them a sliver to hold on. That's it. And so April will always have a special place in my heart because it's not just about awareness, but on the other side, the healing, the joy, the peace, the release, the work. I mean, I live in it every day. Uh, but yeah, April's particularly special. And so as we move into May, because I've been talking for a minute now, we move into May and just highlighting mental health, talking through all of this and still very present with my own mental health journey, understanding how PTSD shows up for me. I talk about it frequently. I'm trying to get better at social media and giving my point of view, and how this shows up for me, mainly at night through nightmares. I very rarely have panic attacks during the day, but they happen. And so flashbacks, hypervigilance. I get the opportunity to talk to military service members, but I don't want anyone to think for 1 second, oh, excuse me. I don't want anyone to think for 1 second or 1 iota that being on a military base, being around people in uniform, there are not thoughts. There are not activating events that will send my body into fight or flight. I've I have never eaten before I speak because my stomach shuts down and my mouth becomes salty. Nothing tastes good to me. I cannot physically eat before I speak. I'm not there yet. Maybe one day, but I'm not there yet. And as of right now, whenever I have to talk, um, my internal system just goes into fight or flight as if I am preparing. And sometimes talking about my story is a fight or flight situation. I am exhausted when I do these talks. There have been times that I've gone back to my hotel room and slept until the next day because it is sometimes can be physically draining. And then you have people that come up to you and they want to shake your hand, hug and take pictures. And that is also exchanging of energy is draining. Um, so when we talk about Mental Health Awareness Month, all the aspects of mental health, uh, we're talking about it, but I just want to highlight the one that I was talking about before. Since I'm sitting here talking about PTSD, I want to talk about borderline personality disorder because I feel like there's still a lot of like myths and misconceptions about people with BDP. One of the things that I found interesting when I was working with the young ladies in Baltimore who have been trafficked, they were given that diagnosis a lot, a lot. So let me just highlight the symptoms of BPD and PTSD. And the reason why I want to highlight them is because of the misdiagnosis that's often given to men versus women. Women are more likely to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. 75% of most cases are women versus men being misdiagnosed with BPD, instead given a PTSD diagnosis. So the symptoms or signs of borderline personality disorder are emotional instability, impulsivity, insecurity, impaired social relationships, an intense passion about everything. Like they go hard. It's very unique. You will sometimes see people with BPD that are just, I mean, they go hard in the paint for whatever it is. And so you heard all that emotional instability, roller coaster for them, impulsivity. I mean, they are risk takers, they are speeders, unprotected sex, binge eating. I mean, they they take the extreme to doing things. Um, that's the symptoms of BPD. PTSD, flashbacks, anxiety, hypervigilance, social isolation, agitation, and hostility. Agitation and hostility can show up in men, and this is why they're probably more likely to get a PTSD diagnosis than BPD. Um, because men, are risk takers. It's almost praised when men take calculated risk or risks and not understanding that there may be some other things, especially if that's all that people see or if they've um, not seen the other side of, that hostility or that range of emotion. Um, but the difference that I want to highlight between the two are the social isolation versus someone with borderline personality disorder is going after those relationships, are in love, they are having sex, um, they're in and out of relationships and going from one to another to another to another. Um, so different. And again, I'm just bringing awareness, not diagnosing anyone. I, again, I like my license. I just want to point out the two and how they can be different and giving you guys don't go diagnosing your family. Lord have mercy. Please don't go diagnosing anybody, your husbands, your spouses, your partners, your sisters, your aunts, your cousins, your grandma. Please don't. Just be aware. Be aware. But then also be sensitive to the fact that both of these are treatable. Borderline personality disorder is intense treatment. And again, not to say that PTSD isn't. Some people are able to function and have high functioning depression and able to maneuver a little bit more um, with the diagnosis of PTSD through therapy of understanding their safety, countering that hypervigilance, the flashbacks, grounding them in reality and anxiety, um, having to go to groups to reduce that social isolation. Borderline personality disorder is a little bit more complex. So their treatment is intense and it can be utilized in combination with medications like any other mental health disorder. Not to say that medications are always the option, but in combination. So BPD is a little bit more complicated. I wish I had a list of some people. There are many celebrities that I think, if we're more transparent, that had BPD. Um, I'm I'm glad to say I'm happy to see the conversations with those that have a larger platform talk about mental health. everything. But whew, I really do wish it was more realistic and them understanding them having access to an incredible amount of resources, an incredible amount of professionals that can help them navigate versus the average person who cannot afford therapy, who doesn't have insurance, cannot afford the medications. And the reality is, undiagnosed or diagnosed, the average person who is diagnosed with BPD or PTSD has a hard time. Point blank, period. Not arguing. So, anyway, on the positive side, I'm gonna say shift. I'm gonna shift to the the other thing. Team, what I said, team self-esteem building. I call team building exercises. When I went to camp and we did team building exercises, first of all, getting a bunch of young people, because I was not young, to go out into the woods with logs and rope. I think it's what logs and rope. I don't know what it was, a bucket or something like a that mimicked us having to take it from one end of this course to the other. We had to navigate across logs. So they gave us these scenarios. If you're old enough to, the floor is lava type of thing where you had to go from one piece of the couch or furniture and the table, and your mama would have put hands on you if she found out that you had her feet in her couch. Think of that army style. So there's, ground at the bottom and just various obstacle courses where we had to get everybody over this two logs or this wall. But there was like red paint on one side or in the middle. Um, and we couldn't touch that part because that was the lava, or everybody was going to die if we did. So this was supposed to increase confidence in our team. These are our people. They got to help us get over. It's 99 degrees in Fort Knox, Kentucky. The first two exercises, yeah, you're like, yeah, let's do this. People are tying ropes to each other and holding on and throwing people over the walls and everything. By the time you get to like exercise 5 or 6 and it's almost lunchtime, people's personalities come out. Yeah. Now I don't want to play with you no more. Now you're doing too much and my knees are sore or I'm scraped up or I think I broke my finger trying to pull somebody that's 150 pounds heavier than me. And I'm all like 119 soaking wet with rocks in my pockets. So I wasn't pulling anybody. Like I was strong, but I wasn't that strong. And so team building exercises are fun if they're not that physical and they don't go for hours. Listen, I'm not a fan of the physical ones. I like the more mental games when they had like rings that we had to like weave through something. I don't know. I like the mental games. I don't like the physical ones, but do you if that's what you want, if your job. Um, I think companies definitely should do team building exercises. So, what am I going to leave y'all with? How to build team self esteem. Because this is what I do, right? I build teams. I'm a leader. No, for me, I want to Glass Soldier to be one of those unique organizations where we do stuff like this. Now, am I going to make? I love the chime in my ear. I think they're telling me it's time to go. I love the idea of incorporating both, mental challenges as well as physical challenges. But for myself, the things that I want to be able to do to help keep confidence up in my team and my team have confidence in me as their leader is one, acknowledging them, acknowledging their work when it's tough. What we do at Glass Soldier is difficult. This is not table talk. You don't have these conversations around dinner. And so talking about sexual assault, sexual harassment, military or not, is difficult. So acknowledging their work wherever you work at, just acknowledging that what they're doing may require more than the average person, especially if you know somebody's struggling. Incentivizing people. There had to be an incentive. For me, I like incentives. I like to be motivated by something. Most people are motivated by rewards. Again, the reasoning behind why we do stuff. If we think that it's going to benefit us, we're going to do it. I had a leader who I felt was incredible to me, and I would have went. I would have went to bat for her. And so leaders should know that. Incentivize your people if you can. I don't care if it's something small. Incentivize them. Lastly, look at the culture of your company. Is it positive? Is it going in the right direction? Are you checking in? Are you having town halls? Are you having conversations? Um, I think that show, like, was it like where the CEO like wore a prosthetic or fake and went into his own company to see how people were talking about them. You need to do all that just to find out that your people or your employees are unhappy. No, I don't know. It made for good TV, I guess. And then the last thing, invest in them. Invest in their productivity in and outside of work. Your people are not monoliths. And so I think if a company has the ability to put a gym in the building, do it. Healthy people show up to work. If you have the ability to put fresh food or something in the cafeteria, do it. If you have the ability to put a daycare in a building, do it. If you have the ability to just, I don't know, once a month or once a quarter, give people random gifts or something like that. I don't know. Obviously, people would want money, um, but investing in them in and out of work, what that looks like, is probably up to you. I know for me, I'm excited to be able to hire people at Glass Soldier. I am saying it on this podcast that I will be the number one employer of veterans because I want them to come and work for me. So, yeah, I'm saying it now. April 27th at 10:27 a.m. in the year of our Lord 2023, that I will be the number one employer of veterans. And so, people, I thank you for listening to me today. As always, I tell you guys, time is a finite resource. And because I cannot give it back to you once it's spent, I appreciate you spending time with me today. Thank you. Thank you for continuing to listen to Glass Soldier, going on our social media, helping me do the work, reaching out to me, the feedback that I get. Amazing. Thank you all so much. So do good, be good, people.